Hello everybody, welcome to the channel. If you haven't clicked subscribe yet, just do it. It only takes a second, it really helps the channel out. If you've watched the channel before, you'll probably know, and you might be able to see it just in the corner, we've got the Volkswagen camper van, put the AFN diesel into it last year. That all went fine and the engine runs great. The only problem with it is it's really underpowered. And the biggest problem with that is all the mechanical injection pumps on the 1.9s, they don't inject enough fuel. And after looking on the internet and seeing all the miracle cures you can get for them, basically none of them are viable and they don't work. So, over the past few months, I've been figuring out how to get one to run on its fly-by-wire throttle with its ECU, with its original injection system. And the way around doing that was to get this car and remove it all. So this video is going to be how to do that and make one run without its transponder, without any of the other stuff, without its dashboard most importantly, and do the conversion into the Volkswagen camper. So I'll bring the camera in now and show you what you've got to do. Okay, so the car we've got here is a 2000 Volkswagen Bora, or a Jetta if you're in the US. It's 1.9 TDI, I can't remember the engine code on this one. The ECU, so if you're looking at cars in scrapyards, I'll tell you everything you need to get, so probably get a PED at this point. The ECU is an 038 906 012 K for kilo. Now, this is a transponder car, so you need the, in normal circumstances, you have to have the key to make this thing go with a little transponder in it. What I did with this car is I took this ECU to my ECU man, he deleted the transponder function, so that's no longer in there. The EGR function, and if you get a later one you might even have a DPF function in there. You need to have all that deleted, and he's also put me in a power map for, in my instance I want this for torque. If you put it into a car you might want something different, but he's remapped the ECU for me. So when he did that, all we did was put the ECU back on, take the transponder out of the key and turned it to see what it did, and it fired straight up, ran great. So then it's just a case of going through all this wiring all the way through the car and seeing what you actually need to make this car run. And this is what it came down to. The ECU, its usual place, is actually straight down there. This loom actually goes inside the car. There's a little breach in the bulkhead just above the throttle pedal. And all you need, there's a whole bunch of plugs, sockets, relays, all kinds of stuff. All you need out of there, out of that entire cable form, is the cable that comes from the back of the throttle pedal to this blue plug. Now, you have to cut the blue and yellow wire. That is when you turn on the ignition, you get a feed down this, and that brings in the 109 relay. That powers everything else up. I'm actually going to replace that with just a regular relay. That will do when we start reinstalling it. But that is the only plug. There's a brown one, there's a white one I believe, there's an orange one. Take them all off, you don't need anything. You just need this blue plug, that's it. Okay, so that's that plug dealt with. So that's, if you're going to do a conversion for an engine transplant, that is the only thing you need from out the car. And you'll see in a minute, everything else, including the ignition barrel, everything else is cut off, and I'm going to start this car with a wire. So, when you've got that, you will... that's a load of cutting. I'll leave this here so I can play with it. There's a ton of wiring still in this which I can cut out. They are things for the transponder, for the air conditioning, a million things that an engine ECU does that I'm not interested in. All I need this engine to do is run and drive on its pedal. So that brings you over to this plug. Now, when you trace back from the ECU, you'll see this wire here. It is purple, well, red and purple. That actually goes down the brown plug, I believe. Ignore it, cut it out. That's just the main feed to the ECU, which powers the diesel pump. That's where your main power's coming in from. Also, there's a smaller red and purple as well, and that's all that's in the big plug. In this plug, the smaller plug of the two, that comes down into a big cable form down here. That's all the sensors from the engine. So basically everything goes up to there. There's not much you have to cut out. You just end up with, when you've traced it through to this plug, it sits down here, and in that part of the cable form there is a black and white, a solid purple, brown and white, a black, a green with a black shield, yellow and black, a brown, and a blue and white. as you can see, they've all been cut. It doesn't need most of them. A couple of them have a feed on them. So what we'll do, as we look through here, this goes up to the big plug. You need to put a couple more feeds on. It comes through to, let's take a look. There's a black and purple. That was on one of the other plugs. I can't remember which one it was. In fact, yes I can, it was on the brown plug. There's a few small wires in there. The only one that you're interested in is the black and the purple, the black and purple. All of them bunched up at this end. We've ended up with a red and black, a yellow and black, the black and purple, and two, a big and a small, red with a purple tracer. All of those put together. All you need to do to those is put an ignition feed to all of them together. I would obviously split them up and fuse them independently, but for right now that's what we're going to do. And there's a black wire in there as well. That's literally just the starter motor crank wire. So if you do that, and there we go, put some power on. And somewhere around here there's another wire, and I put it somewhere where I could find it, which is why I've lost it. Where's it gone? Ah, there it is. So you can see all those wires coming from the ECU, whole mess. It looks really complicated. If I put that onto there, you can hear the diesel pump wake up maybe, and if I go like that, it runs. Can you get on to that? And then the engine stops. That is all you need to make one of these engines run. Obviously you have to have the ECU remaps. If you don't do that, nothing will happen. It'll just sit there and turn over. So there's no way around that. You have to send it in. It cost me £200 to have that redone and a power map done. So then, once you've got this done, it looks. I'll take a picture of the inside of this car, because I thought I was going to have to unplug the entire loom and bring it out with the dash. I've literally taken a Sawzall in there and cut the dashboard in half to try and get the loom out. It's bloody impossible. You can't do it. It's so intricate and goes everywhere. This is the easiest way. So once you've got this solved, this is not difficult. It really isn't. Write down those wire colours as I said them. The big thing is all that you need from inside the car is this blue plug, because that's what the throttle plugs into and feeds the ECU, and the couple of them that come off the brown one. I've already told you the colours, I'm not going to go over it again. So that's it. Then all you need to do is remove all of the engine sensors, the injection pump, and the injectors. Make sure you keep the injectors. They are different to the older cars. They inject a lot more. And the plan next is to take all of this off. Now we've got it running out here, I know everything works, and install that to the AFN engine in the camper van, and just extend the throttle cable, and that should give us a lot more power. It should be better on fuel, and we're going to lose like a 12-foot throttle cable just for mounting this up. So the next part of the video, I'm not going to go through the stripping, that's just boring. That's, you know, if you're thinking about doing this job, you will already know how to take injectors out. If you don't, look at the channel again, I've done a video on there how to get them out and take an injector pump off. That's all just ABC, but you must keep the wiring, you must keep the sensors. But I thought it was going to be a pain of a job, and it really isn't. Now I've done it once, it's not difficult. So next thing, I'm going to strip this down, I'm going to strip down the van, and we're going to go on putting everything back into the van again. So this will probably be another week or two before I get back onto it, but let's see how that goes. Just to give you an idea of how much I went through this car to see what it would take to take the wiring loom out. As you can see, this is the driver's side. I quite literally cut the dashboard clean in half and took the steering column out, and this is what you're faced with. Let's take a look here. This is the main fuse box. Obviously you require electricity, but you don't require the fuse box or any of the wires from it. And as we look through where the wiring used to go, up through that hole, that's just a hole straight through under the bonnet. There's the other end of the brown plug I'm going to talk about in a moment. Green ones here, there's two of those somewhere. They were the ones that went into the dashboard, no longer required. There's hundreds of them, honest, there's so many. Here we go, there's a blue one that went into the dash. That was the one that plugged into the back of the ignition. This is the infamous Volkswagen 109 relay that stops the engines running. Incidentally, if you do have that problem, that is quite literally just power to the fuse box. You can bridge that out if you're on the side of the road and the engine will start, obviously with its proper ECU and the key and everything. That one, I'm not sure where that blue one went. That's an orange one, that went under the bonnet. They were plugged into it. This thing looks a total nightmare, but as you're about to see, all of that, this entire lot here, is completely redundant and you don't need any of it. Okay, well, it's all installed, so you have to forgive the messy wiring for the moment, but I'll just show you what we've gone through to do it. We're obviously in the camper van now, so this was the blue plug I was rattling on about earlier in the video. Excuse the background noise. I'll do a proper wiring diagram, I think, and I'll take a photograph of it and I'll put that on the end of the video. But this is the blue cable from the throttle pedal. Half of it goes to the ECU loom, which comes in on the big plug, and the other half has now been extended down a piece of 7-core wire all the way up to the up to the front of the van. So 7-core, but I'm not using all 7 cores, I'm only using 6. As well as that, in that blue plug, when you take one out, you'll see this wire. This wire is, I don't know if the camera will focus, but I'll tell you anyway, it is a blue and yellow. So it's a blue wire with a yellow tracer. That has to have a switched ignition feed on it. As well, on the loom coming into the ECU, there is these. It's a big bunch of basically big power cables. They are all red with a purple tracer. There is also a, what colour is this one? Purple with a black tracer, and this orange wire isn't actually orange. I've had to extend it. That's got a very small red with a purple tracer and a black with a yellow with a black tracer. I've had to extend that for the purpose of putting it in the van, because it just didn't reach. That actually just goes to the airflow meter, and obviously with it being miles away now, it wouldn't reach, so I had to extend it. So what I've basically done in here, when he's finished going past, we've got just a regular 30 amp switching relay, and switching that, I've got the old, what would you call it, the stop solenoid wire that used to turn the diesel pump on and off on the old mechanical pump, and I've got that same wire switching that relay. When it pulls in, power from the battery, lights this fuse box up, neatly put under there, and when all those wires have got a switch live on them, the engine will run. So I've not used the crank facility on the ECU, I'm not using the heater plug facility on the ECU, or any of the other facilities, other than everything it takes just to make it run. So what I'll do now is I'll go into the front of the van and show you the throttle pedal setup. Okay, so we're in the front compartment. You can see some of the dynamating I'm doing here. So that is just the original throttle pedal. Up above that, on a nice little bracket, I don't know if I can get that in on the camera actually. Let me just turn the screen so I can see it as well. Let's take a look. Yeah, just a little stainless steel bracket there holding the pedal on. And that just goes down that piece of 6-core back to the blue plug. That's all it is, there's nothing else. Obviously there's a feed at the other end. Everything else is done with the original van's wiring. So the engine start and all the rest of it is just down here. No transponded ignition, none of that stuff. If I can look at the camera and see what I'm doing. There we go, it runs. There. And then, if you look down here, so underneath the back of the van, then ignore this grotty wiring. That was for the temperature gauge on the T25. I'm still playing with that. The sizes on all the pipework for the intake were a different size as well, so that's just a bodge now just to see if it ran. So I'll go through what's what, and excuse them moving. So that one there is your, obviously, the mass airflow sensor. That one I did have to extend that loom. So the wire that came back that got the orange, I believe it was, on the fuse box on the inside, that's the other end of that. There's 2 feeds go to that. As we come through, what else can we see with this hideous, there we go, take that off, look, quick release. So this one is the crank sensor, and that is the loom that goes into the back of the diesel pump. I don't know if we're going to be able to see it, but basically down there in the same place as on the original car, that's where the coolant temperature sensor is. And if we can get underneath the van and look, where are you? I will find it. Ah, dear me. Ah, there. There, right there. You can see the stainless steel boost pipe coming from the turbo. That there's the boost, well, I suppose inlet manifold pressure sensor. It was actually in the intercooler on the borer, so I put it in the turbo pipe on this engine because I haven't got an intercooler, so we don't really need that. What else do we need to see? I actually think that's it. So what I'm going to do now, get out from underneath it. I'm actually going to sit down and I'm going to draw just a block diagram with a picture of the ECU and all the wires going to it in watt plugs, and that should help you if you want to cut a loom out. But basically, as far as it goes, if you're cutting one out, the engine sensors all stay in the loom. There's a plug, as I showed you in the beginning of the video. Cut through those wires and see which ones have got a switched ignition feed in. That's the only thing that's in there. So if you find a wire, because the car you take to pieces may be a different year or whatever, so the wiring colours may vary. The only thing that seems to make these cars run is switched ignition feed. So go through all the wiring, see what's got a switch feed on it on the other plug, and just put a switch feed on it. That's all I've done. So I'll draw a diagram with the colours on of what this engine was, and then have a crack at it. The one thing I would say is if you're an enthusiast rather than a mechanic, don't attempt this, because it is pretty intricate when you get into it. It's more unpicking the loom out of the old car. You see all the mess I had to make of the borer. But having done this once, it really isn't that bad. It's better if you can start with a running car though. So, I mean, the car I got gave that because the guy just wanted it out of the way. So, buy an MOT failure or whatever, and take the wiring loom out of one that already runs. That way, when you have your ECU remapped and the immobiliser removed, you can take it one step at a time and make sure. I mean, the engine, as you saw when I removed the loom from the borer, it still ran. I had all the electronics sat on the front bumper and it still ran. And I would not wanted to have done that by taking it out in the scrapyard, not knowing, and then fitting it to this engine and have it not run for some reason, because I don't know whether it's something I've done or whether it's something that's just wrong with the ECU, or you don't know. So the one tip I give you with this is start off with one that you know runs, with a car in front of you, and take your time. Oh, I'll tell you one other thing, just quickly. This diesel pump, there's two different sizes. So obviously the one I got was not the same size as the one that came off, so I had to drill that hole out a bit bigger. It wasn't a huge deal. There are two different pumps. I've actually got one of each, but the original electronic pump I got, we actually put a shaft through the middle of it to see if it would run as a mechanical pump just by moving it. It kind of did. It wasn't very good, so I wouldn't advise doing that either. But yeah, just be sure that the pump bracket you've got matches the pump that you're getting, or be prepared to drill the hole out a bit bigger. But that'll do for now. I'll put the picture up as the end photo for like 10 seconds so you can take a screenshot of it. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.